Welcome, fellow horror hounds, and welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, your unholy home for horror. I'm your host, as always, Barry, and I'm joined today by my corrupted co-host, the diabolical Darren.
Hiya, how are you, mate? It's good to be happy to be talking about another really good film.
Yeah, and the film we're going to be talking about today, well, before we do that, I think we've got to return some videotapes, haven't we?
Yes, that will happen quite a few times during this podcast.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about 2000's American Psycho, very much a modern cult horror film. And the last film that we talked about was a film, 1960s Psycho. This is a movie that came out about 40 years after it. American Psycho, directed by Mary Harron, and of course based on the novel by Bret Easton Ellis. Now, I'm just going to, this is a film that I actually saw on the big screen, and I'd never actually read the novel at that point, and I remember walking away thinking, damn, I really like that. That was a good movie. And let's just go, let's get it right off the bat. Christian Bale is great in this film. He is absolutely perfect as Patrick Bateman. I think you'd agree.
I think the role was actually, he was born to play this role. I don't think anyone else could have done half as good a job. Yeah,
now bearing in mind, Christian Bale, I think this is really the film that kind of pushed him into kind of leading star roles. This is a film that, even though, obviously Christian Bale had been in films prior to this. I mean, I believe the very first film he was in was Steven Spielberg's Empire of the Sun, released in 1987. Very good film. But with this movie, Christian Bale, just from what you understand, there was a lot of actors actually talked about for this film. Everyone from the likes, and bearing in mind, this is going back to kind of the development stage. Everyone from Brad Pitt, Johnny Depp, I believe even Ewan McGregor actually turned the film down at one point.
Right, that's interesting.
Yeah, Leonardo Dicaprio was actually attached to this film for some time. And from what I understand, Leonardo DiCaprio actually wanted 21 million for this movie, and which would have actually taken the budget of the film up to 40 mil. But basically, I believe DiCaprio was actually kind of warned by a feminist activist known by Gloria Steinem that told him not to take the film role on because, at that point in his career, DiCaprio was very much a Hollywood heartthrob. Coming off the likes of Romeo and Juliet and Titanic. She really felt that he could ruin his female fan base, which he'd amassed, by taking on a film playing a serial killer. So it was a big risk, and certainly at that point in his career, I mean, I can't envision it. Certainly not at the point. As much as I like DiCaprio, I could not envision him at that point in his career actually playing that role.
Well, you've got to say that was really a good decision by all, really.
Yeah,
because I don't think it would have done him any good. DiCaprio, because he was more of a mainstream, style actor.
Yeah.
Well, I know Bale went on to, be kind of mainstream, but this sort of elevated him.
It did, yeah.
And put him right up there, and
Yeah. Bale was committed to this role, and at the time there was a worry that Bale wasn't a big enough name. They wanted a bigger name, but Bale, even though, like I said, he had a film career prior to this, but he wasn't the Hollywood star that he is now. But this really certainly helped him land many roles afterwards. And he committed himself, from what I understand as well, for about 9 months. He turned down a lot of film offers for this film. He was dedicated to this film. He wanted this role. And he actually worked out, to get in the shape. This was probably the best shape of his career, in fact. He worked out several hours a day in a gym. And then about 3 hours a day with an on-set trainer to really get himself in shape. For this role, and of course this was kind of the start of his career. For everyone that knows Christian Bale's career, they know that this guy's forever losing weight, putting on weight. He commits himself to each and every performance.
Well, he's done it in a lot of films, hasn't he? He's done it with The Machinist, where he lost a lot of weight. He even took on the role of a boxer, didn't he, in The Fighter?
The Fighter in 2010, playing an ex-drug addict, and again he lost weight for that film. He put on weight. He put a lot of fat on for American Hustle as well.
Yeah,
But for The Machinist, he was practically skeletal. I mean, he actually lost over 4 stone. I think he got himself down to like 126 pounds. And you have to commend him because he had to seriously bulk up again. The next film after that was Batman Begins the following year in 2005.
Yeah, and that's where it all really began.
Yeah, losing all that weight and then putting it on and, really bulking himself up. But from what I understand as well in this film, Mary Harron, the director and all of obviously there's a scene early on in this movie where he's actually showering, and Mary Harron, the director, and all of the female crew in that, they all got around perving on him while he was washing himself.
Yeah, she does say that, yeah.
Yeah, they all kind of fancied him. They all fancied Christian Bale in this film. And there's something else we've got to quickly say. We're going to move off Christian Bale in a sec. Is that in this, a lot of people, even to this day, don't realise he's Welsh.
When he born in Cardiff.
Pembrokeshire, I believe.
Oh, right, I thought it was...
I'm pretty certain he's from Pembrokeshire. A lot of people assume he's American, because from what I understand, he was talking on set in an American accent the whole time. And a lot of his co-stars, even to this day, they just assume he's an American actor. And that's kind of a testament to him. He's actually Welsh, but because he very often plays American characters, he does a really good job of hiding that Welsh accent.
Well, I'm Welsh myself, as you know, and I had no idea that he was Welsh up until, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
If that. But like you say, I think he was born in Pembrokeshire, but I think he grew up his a few early years in Cardiff. I'm pretty sure I read that.
Okay.
Which is only pretty much 12 miles away from me.
Yeah. We'll quickly... All right, the novel. Okay, the novel is a book that received a lot of controversy, actually, upon release. I believe Bret Easton Ellis actually got death threats after the book was published. The book, let's just quickly say, the book is a lot darker. It's a lot more graphic. Yeah. It's a lot more disturbing. To have put the stuff from that book into the film, there would have been a lot of censorship issues.
He has gone on record to say that he didn't want it made into a book.
Yes.
He was disappointed that made into a film, from the book. He was really disappointed, apparently.
Yeah, I think he was actually happy with the final product, though. When it came out, there was actually one scene, we're going to talk about the scene later, there was one scene that he wasn't keen on, actually, from the film.
Right.
Yeah, there was one kind of difference. But the book is very dark, very graphic, and the character of Patrick Bateman is far more, how do I put it? He's far more misogynistic, homophobic, sexist. He's far more unlikable in the book. And as I said, the book is very, very graphic in comparison now. So obviously there's a lot of scenes from the book that have been removed for the film or just simply toned down.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that's been altered as well.
Yeah. Let's go. I mean, this film at its core, this film is really about consumerism and materialism. It's kind of set in Wall Street. You've got all these guys that are like, they're almost indistinguishable from each other. They've all got their nice haircuts, they've all got their suits, and it's like there's almost no individuality between these characters. And I feel like at its core, this film does make a lot of commentary about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, Patrick Bateman is a serial killer, but the amount of lines, this is one of them films that manages to be quite shocking, but it really balances humour and horror to an almost perfect degree.
Exactly, absolutely perfect. And to me, it's a film, I think, it's not really about the murder. I think it's more about yuppie culture.
Yes.
And it's like fantasy and reality.
Yeah.
To me, that's what I got out of it. But, I think the serial killing and all that, we'll come on to it later.
Yeah.
And we'll see what you think of the ending and what I think, because a lot of different people think different thoughts about the ending.
Yeah. With the film, let's just, some of the quotes. As I said, I think this is a film that is, a relatively modern film released in 2000. It's just over 20 years old, but it is a film that certainly does have a fan following. It has a cult fan base out there. And there's a lot of lines in this film that I love. I mean, the first kind of like proper kind of murderous line you get is when he. There's going to be a lot of There's going to be quite a bit of profanity in this podcast, by the way, because we're just quoting lines. Typically, I'm not someone that swears a lot, so I'm just quoting the film. The line in the club. You're a fucking ugly bitch. I'm going to stab you to death and play around with your blood. And there's no kind of reaction from her when she turns around. Now, either A, he's imagining saying that, or B, she simply didn't hear him because it's loud in there.
Well, this is the first, you get the first glimpse of whether he's got two personalities. And I think it's one of the best scenes of the movie. Yeah. And that little glance that he gives her, like a little smirk.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely priceless.
Yeah.
She turns her head then, doesn't she? And then she gives him the money back. But I want to come on to the opening scene just before that.
Okay, yeah.
Where, well, pretty much you got a load of like drag queens.
Yeah.
And you've got the song True Faith by New Order.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just think that's one of the best recaptures of an 80s vibe that I've ever seen in a film.
This film really takes you back to the 80s. It really does. Obviously, it's set in the late 80s. And, from what as well, we talked about this prior to doing the podcast, is the single biggest cost for this film was purchasing the rights to the amount of songs in this movie. There's a lot of great 80s songs in this film.
Oh, it's one of the best soundtracks.
You've got Katrina and the Waves, Walking on Sunshine. Obviously, you've got Huey Lewis in the News. You've got Krista Berg, Lady in Red. Actually, one of my favourite love ballads of all time. And let's just quickly go into it, because Christian Bale, Patrick Bateman, is a big music fan. And I love them little music rants, them little music talks he gives prior to...
It's as if he's like critiquing the albums.
Yeah.
Prior to whatever, he's got in mind.
Well, one of the big standout scenes in this film, let's just quickly talk about some of the cast. You've got Jared Leto in here. You've got Willem Dafoe. Zoe Zavini, however you pronounce her name. Samantha Mathis is in there. Reese Witherspoon. Justin Theroux. There's quite a cast in this film. And, there's a scene in the film, a standout scene, a scene that everyone that loves this film talks about, with Jared Leto and an axe. And I just love the whole build-up to the murder. It's like he shows the album. It's almost like we're watching a commercial. He shows the album, and it's like, do you like Huey Lewis in the News? Personally, I think their early work, was a little too new wave for my taste. But when Sports come out in '83, they really came into their own. And he's putting that rain jacket on.
It just works. It's like the comedy, the terrorists about to ensue. Everything just works in that scene.
Yeah. He gives that brilliant little jig, doesn't he? And he does that little moonwalk, which, by the way, was actually improv. That was improv.
He wasn't told to do that. Yeah, he just come out with it, and the director loved it.
Yeah, Bret Easton Ellis. That was the scene, by the way. He didn't like the moonwalk. He didn't like the moonwalk scene. Right. Yeah, that's what he said. It was played too much up for comedy, but I absolutely love it. I love the whole scene. He's like, Paul Allen, played by Jared Leto, turns around. He's like, "What's with all the paper? Have you got a little chow or something?" He's like, "No, Alan. Why is that a raincoat?" "Yes, it is."
I know it's quite bizarre that that would give alarm bells to anyone.
Oh, he's drunk though, isn't he? He's very intoxicated.
He's off his.
Because I love in the restaurant prior to that, he actually says, "Did you know what is it again? Did you know I'm utterly insane?"
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, there was something else he says that he adds on to that as well. And
he keeps dropping in, doesn't he, hints or confessions even that, he's going on to, he's killing and that, and no one's taking a blind bit of notice.
No, that's what he says, actually. He says, did you know I like to dissect girls? I'm utterly insane.
Yeah.
I love it. And, the axe scene, I remember seeing that on the big screen, him turning around and hacking him. And you don't really see it. You don't have to. The blood's going over it. It's brutal without actually seeing it. And it's like, he turns around and goes, "Hey, Paul, try getting a reservation at Dawson now, you fucking stinking bastard." And he sits there and lights up the cigarette,
It's just like an everyday thing. It's just, I'll just have a cigarette now and calmly, after the scene.
Yeah. One of the other scenes I want to talk about in this film is just brilliant. To me, this film has a lot of great quotes. There's a lot of good scenes in this film. But to me, one of the big standout moments is where they're all showing off their business cards.
Yeah, that's a very important moment as well. It's a film of I don't know if you noticed, but from the start, it's a film of like identities. And they've all created the same identity. They're all wearing the same type of suits, same type of, hair. They've all got money.
Yeah.
And it really is like a film of identities.
It is. And it's, as I say, commercialism, materialism, consumerism and that, And, obviously, quite early on in this film, he's mistaken as being Marcus Helgestrom, I believe it is.
Yes, yeah.
So he goes on taking, through the film, Paul Allen has mistaken him. And that, again, comes down to the fact that all of these guys essentially look the same in that. And I actually love it, where he actually says, after he's being mistaken, he actually says, he's mistaken me for this doofus, Marcus Helgestrom. We go to the same barber, but I have a slightly better haircut.
That's right. They're all. He's basically just vain. They got contempt for anyone who hasn't got money or who isn't, up to their level. But I think his main dislike of Paul Allen is the fact that he's pretty much better looking than him and more successful than him.
Dorsia plays a big part of the restaurant because that's like the go-to place, hard to get place, and the fact that Paul Allen can get into Dorsia and Patrick Bateman struggles to.
That's right, and that's an incentive alone just to kill him.
But the scene where, very kind of like boastingly, Patrick Bateman puts his business card out and he says that it's bone and it's silly and brow and all this and that. He's showing off the new card. He's really proud of it. And they all start taking their cards out. And I love it when the second guy, Van Patten, puts his card out. And I believe it's Bryce. He's impressed with his card. And you hear the inner monologue. He's like, I can't believe Bryce prefers Van Patten's card to mine.
Well, it just goes to show, like, they're in their own little world and they're just detached from reality to where that's a big thing. Yeah. Who've got the best card. It's like being in school again, isn't it?
Yeah, but Paul Allen, when he puts his card out, it's the one that upstages them all. And again, you hear the inner monologue. And by this point, Patrick Bateman is sweating. He is sweating, and he's like, I believe he said something along the lines of, look at that subtle off-white colouring, the vast thickness of it. My God, it's even got a watermark. It's really brought out this inner sense of resentment, the fact that he's been upstaged. And I like it when they're in the restaurant again, the interaction between the two. And he actually says to him, he goes, where'd you get a tan? And he goes, a salon. He goes, I've got a tanning bed. Do you want to get one? And there's this quick look as if to say, how fucking dare you? How dare you?
And it's even a lot, like during that scene as well, he even hints at like Ivana Trump being sat over on another table.
Yes.
And there's a lot, I think he does it with Donald Trump as well in the film when he's in the car. There's a lot of, they're looking up to these high figures with money all the time. Yeah. Life is just about money and success.
Yeah.
But did you notice, not to go off topic, like, did you notice, like, when he's in his office working, he never does no work?
He doesn't. No, they're all rich. These guys are all on Wall Street, the rich, but you never see a single one of them do a shred of work.
No. You see them take drugs, you see them, do everything else, drinking, but you never see any of them work.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, with that scene as well, there's another line that I really like in the film. It's the line where he says to Willem Dafoe's character, I'm trying to remember the name of the investigator, the detective. He comes in and obviously starts interrogating him. And he says to him, oh, that's a nice apartment you live in. He's like, thanks. Like, he's got that real smug look, like,
Donald Kimball, he was.
Yeah, Donald Kimball, that's it. Now, the way Willem Dafoe plays this, actually, I didn't realise this until quite recently. He played it in 3 different ways. Mary Harron actually instructed him to go in there, know that he's the killer, be kind of unsure, and C, completely not know at the point. I think it was something like, what was it? Was it basically they told him to kind of like be really suspicious, have absolutely no idea, or completely undecided. So basically, they actually did different scenes where Willem Dafoe's kind of like, he's pretty certain it's Bateman. He played it the other way, like he's got no idea, doesn't suspect him at all, and then kind of unsure. And what they did is kind of splice them scenes together.
That's
So
right.
they played it in kind of a way where it's kind of like, hang on, is he onto him or isn't he? And it's really kind of like unsure, because when they have like the last kind of interrogation, if you will, because I think they have 3 scenes together, and in the final scene in that, it's kind of like you think to yourself at that point, he's onto him. He's got to be onto him.
Yeah, because it keeps you guessing. Like the first scene, you think, well, is he like, because he plays it so well that, if he was a poker player, it'd be amazing, because you just can't take nothing off him. And then doesn't he try and get him to admit to liking Huey Lewis and the News?
Oh, well, again, I don't know if it's a coincidence or what, I don't know, but he gets out Huey Lewis and the News and he says, I'm not really into singers, I don't like, which is the great thing, because we've heard him rant about music all the way through it. Now, Whitney Houston, getting back to the music, because there's a little rant, he goes, did you know on Whitney Houston's debut album she had 4 number 1s? Whitney Houston actually refused to have any of her songs in the film.
That's right, don't they play like an instrumental?
Just the instrumental without her vocals.
That's right, yeah. That would have took the budget to well over bloody 40 million, wouldn't it?
So, yeah, and, there's a murder. Now, the scene in the book is far more graphic. The first murder we actually see Bateman commit in this movie is on a homeless man.
Yeah.
He tells him he reeks of shit. He's like, why don't you get a job, Al? And, he stabs him. He stabs him to death, and then he kicks the dog to death, which you don't see, you don't actually, but you don't have to. It's pretty disturbing in itself, the whole nature of that death.
His old contempt for the homeless guy is pretty, savage, really.
Yeah.
It's quite brutal, the killing in the end as well.
Yeah.
It's quite chilling.
And, for example, as well, there's a moment as well in the film where he goes into the laundromat, the dry cleaners. Yeah, and he's trying to get some what's presumed to be blood, removed in that. And the woman's, ranting on. And we get this quick moment. He's like, if you don't shut up, I'm going to fucking kill you. But then she's like, and then it kind of cuts again. It's kind of like, hang on, did he really say that?
That's right, yeah. Because the lady comes in then, and in this film, every single lady or whatever, and even a man at one point seems to have a crush on Patrick.
Yeah.
And he can sweet talk his way out of anything.
Yeah. That scene, by the way, in the alleyway with a homeless person, was far more graphic in the book. Lot more graphic. I believe he actually guts the dog. He actually guts the dog, and I think the homeless guy, Al, I believe it is. I think he's actually stabbed way more times as well in the book. As I say, as well, something that's kind of hinted later on in the movie as well, just kind of like a comment that he says, is that he resorts to cannibalism, that he had actually partook in cannibalism. He'd actually tried eating some of the brains. That's something that the book throws around a lot, actually. In the book, it doesn't sugarcoat any of that.
Well, he references quite a lot of serial killers throughout the film, doesn't he?
Yes, there's actually one scene, isn't there, where he comes out with a quote. Now, it's actually a mistake. For anyone that knows me, I'm a big true crime buff. And he actually comes out with a quote, right? The line is, when I see a pretty woman walking down the street, I think one or two things. Part of me would like to get her to, take her out, get to know her, blah, blah. In a second, what a head would look like on a stick. And he actually says that quote come from Ed Gein, a Wisconsin serial killer from the 50s. Well, Ed Gein, technically speaking, wasn't a serial killer. He murdered 2 people. I mean, he was certainly a very disturbed-minded individual, but he wasn't actually a serial killer. But B, the quote actually come from Ed Kemper, the co-ed killer.
Right, that's right, yeah.
Who used to decapitate his victims. Most of his victims were actually hitchhikers. Tallest serial killer on record as well, at 6'9". So it's actually a misquote. The quote he said is correct, but he's actually taken it from the wrong person. It's actually Ed Kemper that said that.
I think his character's kind of a mixture of like Ted Bundy. You've got a cannibalism in there as well. I think he's a mixture of Ed Gein, Ted Bundy. I think it's a whole mix.
Yeah. There's certainly Bundy, because Bundy, for anyone that knows, obviously, true crime and that, Bundy was very much a charmer. This was the kind of guy that could get a lot of women, that he wanted. And, he was a guy that he certainly could turn on the charm. He was considered to be a handsome man. He certainly had career prospects. He was studying law. But, yeah, in this film as well, let's talk about another one of the highlight scenes. This is a scene that is one of my favourite moments in the movie, and there's a couple of moments within this scene that I love. The chainsaw scene.
Yeah,
he runs in, biting her leg, and she kicks him in the face. He's like, not the fucking face! You fucking, what is it again? I can't remember what he calls her now.
No, I can't remember.
But he's like, not the fucking face. It's just, again, that vanity. It's like, just hit me anywhere else. Just don't ruin my face, will ya?
And that scene is straight out of a 1980s slasher film, isn't it? The chase down the hall. Him being the naked one as well, which is kind of strange. You've got him naked with a chainsaw chasing
around an apartment naked with a chainsaw. Now, let's just quickly... Texas Chainsaw Massacre obviously plays in this film. He's actually doing his workout exercise, isn't he, to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Yeah,
have you noticed as well, it's like, before he does a killing, he's playing Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes. Yeah.
So that happens a lot.
And a quick little thing as well, obviously, just a little fact, because obviously this film is set in the late 80s. There's a couple of porn films that appear in this film as well. He phones up and he's trying to get a reservation, and there's obviously a porn film playing in the background. That porn movie wasn't released until the 90s, by the way.
Oh, right. I know the one cover of the porn film was like a mock-up cover that wasn't real. Obviously, the film was real. You could see.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We get that laughing, don't we? He's trying to get like... Now, again, it kind of made me... The way that scene played out, kind of like... It made me think was the guy really laughing? Or was it in his head? Or was this guy laughing because, look, hang on a sec, he's trying to get a table at Dorset. There's absolutely no cat in hell's chance of that happening. How did you take that scene? What the guy was laughing for real, right?
Well, I think during the whole film, I think there's clues to tell you that this could all be a dream.
Mm.
So it's how you take out of each scene, what you take out of it. For me, I thought right up until the end, because I think it's like in the ending, they give you another couple more clues to say that this wasn't real, because a cat tells him, on an ATM
feed
to go
me a stray cat.
Yeah, the ATM.
Well, that's
tells him to kill.
Yeah, that's going to get me on to another point actually. Because
that's pure dream,
as the movie gets further in, it actually, I'll just mention it now. I'll just talk about it now before I forget. There's a moment not far after that, actually, where he's involved in a bit of a shootout with some police officers. And, he's only got a normal gun. And there's kind of an explosion that happens from just shooting. And then he looks at his gun as if to say, what the hell? And at that point, it's kind of like, is this a reliable account of what we're seeing? Because it's like, it was following in the footsteps. It was one of them kind of 80s action film tropes where everything blows up at just like a single gunshot and that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another, you just think this is all in his head at this point. I thought that anyway.
Yeah, and obviously there's a moment where he goes into the apartment and he shoots the security guard, and I just love that moment actually where because he shoots him, doesn't he, going through that revolving door.
Yeah. And doesn't he, stupidly, he spares the one guy his life.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. He walks into the next security guard, and he's like reaching in his pocket, and you think he's going to pull the gun out.
Yeah.
But he actually pulls out the pen.
It just makes no rhyme or reason why he would let him off.
And I'm just going to say, because as I said, throughout the whole film, Christian Bale, just carries this film so goddamn well. He's just absolutely brilliant in this film. And there's another scene that I love, and certainly from kind of an acting perspective here as well. And that's where he phones up his lawyer confessing all these crimes.
Yeah. And I think that's probably one of his best scenes.
He's completely unravelled, isn't he? Yeah, by this
he
point.
delivers it great, yeah.
Yeah, he's completely deconstructed at this point. And, he confessed he's probably murdered 20, 30, 50 people. He's lost count by this point. That's when we get the mention he mentions about he killed some, I'm not going to use the word, but he killed some man walking a dog, and he started eating the brains and all this and that. And he's completely unravelled and that. And I've just killed a lot of people. And And then, of course, leading on to let's just quickly talk about this. We're going to talk about return to some other points in the film, but the ending to this film, which actually had me and a lot of other people kind of scratching their heads. The ending kind of implied to me, hang on a sec, what's fact, what's fiction here? Did he actually kill anyone? Or...
Yeah, go on, sorry.
Well, it's kind of like, he's confessed to the lawyer, and even when the lawyer meets up with him, he doesn't realise he's even Patrick Bateman. Again, it comes down to that because, Paul Allen, Jared Leto's character, had mistaken him for Helgestrand during the course of the film. And there's even a bit earlier on in the film when he walks through and he's listening to the headphones, listening to Walking on Sunshine, which I think is one of the greatest feel-good songs of all time, by the way. I love that song. And he walks in and the guy even calls him a different name, calls him Smith. It's like he gets confused with being everyone else in this movie.
Yeah, like I say at the start of the film, it's just all about identity. And the lawyer actually says, Paul Allen isn't dead. I had, food with him over in London.
Yeah, well, that's what's confusing.
That's proof that instigated, it all, really.
Yeah. So he comes out, and obviously what he says is, it's impossible, that's not possible. I met Paul Allen just a few days ago. I had had lunch with him in London. So hang on a sec, because we see him kill Paul Allen. Now, okay, that's fine. If he imagined that and whatever, and it's all in his head, okay. This is the other theory I have. But again, now I know that Mary Harron, the director herself, was actually quite disappointed with the ending. She actually come out and said that she didn't want it to be kind of read that way, and she's actually gone ahead and said that it was to be an open ending, but he's a serial killer. Patrick Bateman is a murderer. He has killed these people. But the fact that Paul Allen is apparently still alive, and then there's one scene as well, even if you say it was there's a scene where he goes around to Paul Allen's apartment and there's a realtor there showing people around. Now, Paul Allen, presumably, has not been living there for some time. She's got no knowledge of Paul Allen or anything. So how do you explain that scene? Because even if you say, for example, there is the possibility, however small, that this lawyer who had lunch with Paul Allen, maybe the whole identity confusion as well, maybe that wasn't Paul Allen.
Exactly, yeah. I think because they all look so similar, and well, we just don't know if it's a dream or reality. A reality at this point. Everything just becomes, it puts the viewer into like you're thinking, what the hell,
Yeah, I mean,
we don't know what's going on.
I've seen American Psycho many times, and I've tried my best to really decipher the ending, and it's fine, right? Maybe this is a guy that clearly has homicidal fantasies, but hasn't actually partaken in any. But then again, if you read it that way, the scene in which he goes into the laundromat,
right? Yeah.
Is that a fantasy? Because what's believed to be blood is on them sheets.
I think, like you said with the director, I think she wanted maybe some of the kills are real, other kills are fantasy, maybe. For me, I got out of it. I just thought it was all kind of like a fever dream or whatever. But now you said that, it makes sense that maybe certain scenes were, Yeah. Maybe he was a serial killer, but he wasn't the serial killer he wanted to be, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, maybe Paul Allen wasn't one of the victims, and maybe we were just seeing a fantasy there. But it certainly gets me thinking every time I watch it. There's a scene I like again near the end when it's kind of like when he's laughing uncontrollably, and they say, "What's up?" and he goes, "I'm just a happy camper." Just rocking and rolling. And I like how he points his finger there. And, another scene as well. Let's talk about the scene in the toilet with the guy that is going in there to presumably strangle, but he turns around and he thinks Bateman's coming on to him.
Yeah, and again, like, throughout the whole film, you've got different characters all having a crush on Bateman.
Yeah.
And obviously even the bloke. Which he was played... like really like goofy, wasn't he, type of guy?
Well, you would have put money on him actually being gay.
Yeah.
The fact that he was with Samantha Mathis's character, I just found like kind of hard to believe, because he's like so clearly gay, but yeah, when he turns around and he's like, I've wanted this for a long time. Patrick Bateman actually goes and washes his gloves.
Yeah, and he says, I gotta go and return some videotapes.
Which is actually mentioned 3 times in the film, I believe, about returning.
Yeah,
It's become quite a quote, hasn't it?
Exactly, it's become really well known.
But the confession scene, I think, is just great, where he's completely unravelled, and I believe there was 14 takes of that, because apparently Mary Harron had actually said that every time he did it, he just got better and better, and kind of added some new little stuff to it. And yeah, 14 takes, and apparently during the filming of that, he got through a lot of caffeine to do that as well.
Yeah.
And it's got said as well, with the novel, this is one thing I will say in comparison. The movie is almost word for word the same. It is very similar. There is a bigger emphasis on, because obviously, we'll just quickly talk about this. AIDS is something that came around in the 80s. And in the book, there was a lot of mention of AIDS. And in the film, there is only one real mention of that in the movie. Yeah. So they certainly didn't want to kind of bash us across the head with that. But generally speaking, aside from, say, the murders and certain characteristics of Patrick Bateman, it is pretty much word for word. Every word that's said in the movie is very, very similar to the
the scene, he has scenes, obviously, with his secretary, Jean.
Yeah.
I read that in the book, he ends up marrying her.
It's been a while since I've read the book.
Yeah, apparently he marries her, so that obviously makes for a really different...
Yeah, I can't actually recall that, I will be honest. I can't actually remember that. But yeah, she's one of the characters, obviously has a crush, and... she escapes death, doesn't she? Because he actually puts a nail gun to the back of her head.
Yeah, what happens is the phone rings, and he sort of loses the moment.
Yeah.
And then he sort of it's as if he, got some sort of heart there somewhere, because he basically just lets her go, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
I think that was good for the film, because I think she comes across really nice character, and I think there's some sort of empathy with him in that scene.
Yeah, he comes out of a serial killer thing as well, doesn't he? Ted Bundy. Did you know that Ted Bundy's first dog was a collie named Lassie? I'm not sure if that was actually invented for the film, because I've read a lot of books on Ted Bundy, and I've never actually read that fact before, so I'm not sure if that was something invented for the novel or the movie.
I think possibly was, because, like you say, a couple of the other quotes don't really match the serial killers, and that. So,
But yeah, she of course discovers the disturbing doodling, doesn't she? She's the one that discovers all these, these crazy drawings in the office and that as well.
Yeah, and what with her character, what makes it work so well is the fact that she could be someone straight out of something like Twin Peaks. She's that nice.
Yeah.
And it sort of contrasts with the way he is, and we don't know if he's, why she's sort of into him that much. Yeah. Because he does come across as, let's be honest, a bit of an asshole.
But he's kind of a lovable asshole. You watch the film and you can't help but watch him and love him, because he's got all of them characteristics that we hate. He's egomaniacal, he's narcissistic, but he's so captivating to watch.
Well, doesn't that model say to him that when he kills, he says, I really like you, there's something about you?
Yeah.
And then he ends up killing her.
Well, we see the hair, don't we? That's it, a lock of blonde hair. He actually says to her in the club, he actually says, I'm into murders and executions mainly.
That's right,
and this is the thing, I didn't pick up on this first time though. She thinks he says mergers and... what's the other one? She mistakes executions for something else. She thinks murders is mergers and something else. Yeah, there's another word. So she doesn't actually hear correctly what he actually says.
That kind of makes sense for the scene there.
Yeah, but, he's just great. He's just so great in this role. And as I said, it really kind of put him on the map, and a lot of film roles came his way. This was the very same year as well as Shaft. He was actually in Shaft as well, and a couple of years later he was in an action movie called Equilibrium as well, which you could say kind of followed in the footsteps of The Matrix to some degree. But yeah, Christian Bale, it's like you said, he was pretty much, I feel like he was born to play this role, and I really can't envision. And this is another thing, it must be said as well. The book, the novel, and even the film, I suppose, was kind of like criticised, if you will, even though it did well financially and its reviews were generally good for being misogynistic and all this and that. It was directed by a female.
Yeah.
It was directed by Mary Harron.
And I thought after this film, which obviously we're saying now, I know you like it as much as me, I think it's an absolute classic. Why the hell didn't she go on, and have a really big, directing career? She made a couple of good films, but, nowhere near to what she should have gone on to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll confess, she's an actress I'm not overly familiar with. A director. But yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to actually think of another film of hers right now without actually looking into it. But I certainly didn't know who she was. Yeah, when this film came out. I mean, as I say, I'd seen Christian Bale in Empire of the Sun, which I'd probably watched when I was about maybe 10, 11 years old and that. And of course, a lot of people probably don't realise as well, he actually voiced a character in an animated Disney film. He voiced a character in Pocahontas in 95, in 95.
I really like him in The Fighter, I do. I think that's a great film. I think his performance in it is outstanding, and I'm not sure if he won awards for it, but I still put this film as his best.
I believe he actually won an Oscar, or he was at least Oscar nominated for The Fighter in 2010. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal portrayal of a real life Irish boxer. It's fantastic. If you get a chance to watch that film, people who are listening,
there's some great irony in this film as well, isn't there? Because this is the only film that we can ever really see Batman directly kill the Joker. We've got Christian Bale's Batman killing Jared Leto Joker, hacking him to death, with an axe. And again, just another little moment that I actually like as well later on in the film is where. I'm trying to remember who is actually talking to him, but there's a character speaking to him, and he says about Patrick Bateman, that loser Patrick Bateman, and they don't realise that that's Patrick Bateman they're talking to.
I think, was that the lawyer?
Yeah. Was it?
Yeah, I think it was the lawyer.
Yes, it may have been. Because again, getting back to kind of the chainsaw scene as well, that bit with that whole kind of chase sequence and stuff, and we see, again, like out of a slasher movie, we see these bodies hanging up. In the closet and all that. Brilliant. And we see this, did you see what was written on the wall in presumably blood? It was like, die yuppie scum.
Yeah.
As well. And, Patrick Bateman, I love that kind of it makes me laugh actually earlier on in the movie when he's really trying to present himself as being this really decent human being when he's talking about we need to promote equal rights, we need to promote, we need to home the homeless and... Do you remember he's talking about all these good deeds we need to do and focus on?
Yeah, every so often, like at the start of the film as well, he's like one of the guys comes out with an anti-Jew reference, and then he puts him in his place.
Yeah, curb the anti-Semitic remarks, and I'm thinking this guy's a serial killer.
Yeah,
this is a guy
that's what makes
people.
it so bizarre. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I do want to come on to put a fact, not sort of. What happens in the film.
Okay.
But, as you know, you're a big serial killer fan, yeah?
Well, fan's probably not the right word.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't condone what they do, but I have a definite, an ardent interest
in... Yeah, I come out with that wrong. But, there was a Canadian guy called Luca Magnotta.
Yeah, that's right.
And this was his favourite film along the likes of Basic Instinct. And he made... there was a documentary made called Don't F With Cats.
Yes.
Where... He basically started killing cats online and progressively got worse to where he was going to say, I'm going to kill a person. Well, he ended up killing this Chinese student, made a snuff film. You had the new Order song playing in the background, which is a nod to this film, which makes you think of it throughout. And there's also another little link to Derek McKinnon, who was the lead actor in Terror Train.
Yeah, he was the killer, wasn't he?
Yeah. Basically, McKinnon was living in the same block of flats as Magnotta, and Magnotta invited him up to his flat.
Yeah.
The same night he killed the Chinese student. So basically, I think he would have killed Derek McKinnon instead of this Chinese student if he'd have agreed to go up there with him. Because Magnotta wanted to get into films.
Yeah. Magnotta, the guy you're talking about, obviously a psychopath, wanted his claim to fame. Because for some of these people, right, infamy and being famous are one and the same. Whether these people, it's really scary and sad that people feel their claim to fame is by, do you know what, committing murder. But obviously you've got to have, the seed's got to be there already. You know, there's got to be some seriously deep underlying issues. And he modelled himself on Patrick Bateman. He saw himself as a Christian Bale Patrick Bateman.
He even done the cannibalistic part of it, because he even ate part of that guy.
Yeah.
Which is, and the Basic Instinct reference is the ice pick, where he actually killed the guy with the ice pick. I've actually seen this snuff film in reality. It's like 8-10 minutes. I wouldn't recommend anyone to go and check it out, really. Yeah. It's quite disturbing, and it's stuck with me.
We probably have to edit this bit out.
I don't. I think it'd be okay.
Yeah. I say Luca Magnotta, and I watched the documentary. It was really interesting stuff. It was a really good watch in that. But as I said, for some of these people, it's just they're basically insignificant little nobodies, and by doing things like that to them in their own distorted mind, they become someone. And in a way, that's what kind of gets me back to American Psycho. There's a part of me that used to think, has he brought all this into his own head to try and differentiate himself from all of the other people? To stand out from the crowd, because all of these people, they're like robots. They're all like one and the same. As I say, they always get mistaken for someone else. They all look the same. Was this kind of a way, in a very distorted way, of trying to separate himself from the rest of the crowd, to not kind of follow the cattle? Because we see this huge regime as well. And again, I've got to kind of say, hats off to Christian Bale. In the beginning of this movie, we realise how much care he takes of himself. We go through all the different products he uses. Yeah. And it's really like, wow. And apparently Christian Bale actually went through that process during the production of the movie.
Yeah, that don't surprise me. Because the scene where he's taking off the mask is quite iconic. Because he's taking off a face mask.
Yeah.
But then we see his face underneath.
Yeah.
And we're thinking to ourselves, well, is that another mask?
Yeah. They were worried about that. Mary Harron was really worried about that scene. She thought it was going to rip off before he gets all the way through it. But they managed to do it in one take. But that was a scene they were a little worried about. They thought there was going to be multiple takes for that scene. And then, of course, upon Paul Allen's disappearance, obviously, certainly at that point in the film, we know, he's killed him. But when he says, you can just, Willem Dafoe says about, just disappearing, and Christian Bale says, it's amazing, someone's just there, then boom,
That's right, yeah.
Again, it kind of almost makes me think, is he kind of talking about himself, his own kind of psyche here? It just kind of makes me wonder.
You've also got, the scene where he leaves a answer phone message in the voice of Paul Allen. And obviously he doesn't sound a bit like Paul Allen.
No, he doesn't.
Is that all made up in his head?
They would know, wouldn't they?
Exactly,
listening to that recording, they know that's not Paul Allen's voice.
Yeah. Which makes me think even more so that it's dreamlike. And
when he goes round to the apartment, and they're like, it's not Paul Allen's apartment, that's the big WTF moment for me. Because that's hang on, what the hell? He was around. And I'm just going to talk about one other scene, actually. Again, this is a scene that's very often talked about. The threesome sequence.
Yeah, very iconic.
Oh my God. We can say it. We're just quoting it from the film. What is it again? Get over and look at her asshole.
Yeah, what else does he
say?
Don't
just look at it, eat it.
Eat it, yeah.
Right. By the way, on the, I believe it was the theatrical version, or there was some version of the film, actually, where they actually cut out the whole bit, and they actually just said ass. The whole bit was actually removed.
And isn't it quite bizarre, when the three of them are having sex, how he's flexing his muscles, looking at himself in the mirror.
That just shows how narcissistic he is. That scene sums him up.
It's yeah, it's brilliant scene. It tells you exactly what he's like.
Yeah, to an absolute tease, like dance of it. Take your dress off. He's just talking there about the music, and then he starts. It's like take your robe off. And he's sitting there.
It's quite bizarre.
Yeah, he's sitting there talking about Whitney Houston before getting involved in this sex act, and it's just. Oh, it's just great. And that scene just really made me laugh when he's instructing them, what to do.
Even when he tells the lady not to smoke.
Yeah.
Like you can see his OCD that he got throughout the film is like a characteristic of him.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because he does it with the secretary as well when she goes to put the ice cream spoon down on his desk.
That's correct, yeah. and the glass, the drink that they bring in for Willem Dafoe. He quickly puts the coaster down, doesn't he?
That's right, yeah. And then we see then something's going on in his mind.
Yeah. I think American Psychos, I think it's a great film. I think it's a great movie. As I said, it certainly does have a fan base. I'll never forget watching this on the big screen. I tell you what, it was released around the same time. There was probably about a week or two difference between the two. Screen Free. I remember going to see Screen Free and American Psycho.
Well, all I can say is I'm envious then because I never got to see it on the big screen.
Yeah, and the scene that always stuck out to me actually, because bearing in mind I would have been 17 and a half when this came out, and I remember seeing it, and just the axe scene always left memories with me. Just that brutal axe scene of him just being absolutely maniacal and just really losing it. I mean, that's the first time in the movie we really see him lose it. I mean, obviously he stabs Al to death, which again is a pretty hard scene, and this probably sounds wrong to say, but even that scene makes me laugh. It's just the delivery of the lines from Bale.
Yeah,
I don't condone murder or anything like that and homeless people, but it's just the line. It's like, you reek of shit. Why don't you get a job out? And it's the delivery. It's the way that Bale delivers them lines.
Yeah, it's like black humour.
It is. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
It's a perfect mix of black humour, horror, and there's a lot of things going on in this film.
Yeah. But people have asked me before, what's my favourite scene from the film. There's a lot of lines I love. There's a lot of scenes I love. The axe scene, but also, as I said, the comparing the cards scene, because I think it really sums up the level of consumerism and materialism in that one scene. Just how they're all trying to upstage each other,
Yeah, absolutely.
They may as well just get their penises out and just compare sizes.
Yeah, like a piss contest.
Yeah.
But my favourite, I gotta be honest, is the nightclub scene from the start where you've got like the Charlie's Angels.
Oh, yes, yes.
You've got the drag queens. And then when he says that line to the barmaid about, I want to stab you and then I want to play with your blood. To me, that's my favourite scene.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's yeah. I love that song, actually.
Is
it New Order, do you say?
Yeah, True Faith by New Order.
I really do like that song. Whenever I hear it, I always think American. This is the thing. This is how kind of like iconic this film has become for me. When I hear that song, I think American Psycho. When I hear Walking on Sunshine, I think of the scene now where him walking into work listening on his headphones.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think of them scenes now. And Huey Lewis in the News. How can you not hear, Hit to Be Square without thinking of Patrick Bateman now?
Exactly. I think of when I hear the New Order song, I actually think of Luca Magnotta, but that's a different.
Oh, you're giving him way too much credit. Come on, Bateman did it for.
Exactly.
But yeah, also another quick line that I just thought of, kind of last minute. I love it when he's in the because there's clearly no love. There's no level of chemistry between him and Evelyn, his fiance, played by Reese Witherspoon.
That's right.
Which he's sitting in there. In the limo, and he's listening to. He goes, "What is it? I'm trying to listen to my new Robert Palmer tape, and I've got Evelyn, my supposed fiance, just buzzing in my ear."
It's quite bizarre, their relationship, because she doesn't listen to a word he ever says.
No. And just to prove as well of just how kind of narcissistic Bateman is as well. Just another little thing that I kind of picked up on is when, because he's having an affair, isn't he? He's having an affair with her name. Courtney, I believe it's Courtney, played by Samantha Mathis, and she's all drugged up. She's on, and she's smoking, and he's like, what is it? He turns around, he says, you smoke, or you're smoking. She goes, you never noticed. That's right, just how self-absorbed he is. Now, presumably, they've been seeing each other for a while now, and she's been smoking, clearly, for quite a long time, and he's never even noticed.
I always find with that scene as well that she's trying to tell him something.
Yeah, what? What, though?
Yeah, we don't know.
No.
That's the thing.
I kind of got the impression that she was going to tell him she loved him or something, or, I don't know, or... I don't know, because I've read the book, but I need to return to the book, because I don't remember if the book actually kind of explores that, expands upon that at all. But
all I can think of is you're right. It's like, I love you, but then she just turns around and says, I have a nice Easter.
Yeah.
So that's all it could be. And then, I don't want to go too deep into it,
It just shows you how self-absorbed he is as a character.
She does actually say that she wants 2 kids, man.
She does. She wants children. It's funny, isn't it? He takes her in the restaurant, and she's like all drugged up. She's sitting there like, do you know what I mean? She's like all like she's almost asleep, isn't she?
Yeah. Could that have been her telling him that she's pregnant? Maybe, I don't know.
There is that possibility. It makes me laugh though, because he tells her they're at Dorsia, and then you clearly see on the menu that it's not Dorsia.
Dorsia is quite a big character. The film that he never actually see the place.
No, he can't get a place there. Much to his like resentment and stuff. But I think that's pretty much like we're going to keep this to like under an hour. We're kind of like etching towards an hour here, but there's a lot of stuff to talk about regarding this movie. As I say, I think it's a great film. I still don't have a definitive opinion on like if it's real or not. Mary Harrigan says it is, but then I'm kind of left scratching my head because the way it's executed towards the end, it kind of makes me thinking, hang on a sec, how much of this is like the Joker, who proves to be an unreliable narrator in The Killing Joke. He tells us his story that, he was a failed comedian, he turned to a life of crime, blah, blah, and all this and that. But at the same time, he actually says later on in the story, when people ask about my backstory, I prefer it to be multiple choice, implying that it might actually be fabricated.
Yeah.
So Patrick Bateman makes for an unreliable narrator.
Right, so this is what I got out of it, right, At first I thought, first time I watched it and that, I thought, it's definitely a dream. So I've gone back now, I've watched it with commentary by the director and all that, and the way I take out of it now is that a couple of those kills were real, not all of them.
Yeah.
I think he's killed maybe a few of the girls, possibly the ones we see off screen, but some of the big ones, I don't think he did. I think it was all in his head. To answer the question, I think it's basically just a mixture of the two. Dreamlike and mixed in with a little bit of reality.
Yeah. It's trying to separate the fact from the fiction, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, American Psycho, great film. I'm going to assume most people that have listened have seen the movie. It is actually one of my favourite horror films of the 2000s. So that's all we're going to talk about today. We are going to be back again soon to haunt you and torment you. And thanks a lot to everyone that listened. And if you've liked what you've heard, please feel free to subscribe. And adios for now.
Yeah, thank you, and see you all again soon.
Take care.